The Secret of Shambhala, Chapter 5 by James Redfield, The Contagion of Awareness. We start off with an extensions recap. The first extension, connecting with the energy and letting it flow through you, visualizing that it forms a field of energy that flows ahead of you wherever you go. When you are truly practicing the first extension, the energy is coming into you and you are seeing the world more as it really is, colorful, vibrant, beautiful, like a magic forest or a colorful desert. The second extension is setting your field of energy so that it will enhance your life flow. You do this by staying ever alert and expectant. The third prayer extension, setting your prayer field to go out and increase the energy and vibrational levels of others. When your prayer field reaches other people in this way, they feel a hit of spiritual energy, clarity, intuition, and they will be more likely to give you the right information. There is a higher self-expression that can be found on every person's face. If we speak to that self, that expression, our energy helps to lift a person into higher self-awareness. This effect is increased if one knows how to extend one's prayer field the way the legends explain. We must expect our prayer field to go out in front of us and increase other people's vibration at a distance even before we are close enough to see their faces. To practice the third extension, you must consciously visualize that your energy is overflowing into the field of everyone around you and lifting their vibration so that they too begin to see the world as it really is, colorful and vibrant. Once that happens, they can slow down and sense the synchronicity. After setting our fields in this manner, it is easier to observe the higher self-expression on the faces of others. Pitfalls. Each face is a pattern of features, like an ink blot, and you can see many things there. You can see the anger of your abusive father, the aloofness of an uncaring mother, the face of someone who has threatened you. This is a projection of your past, a perception created by a traumatic situation that has colored how you expect others to act. When you see someone who even slightly resembles someone who has done you wrong, the tendency is to expect that person to be the same way. We all must get beyond expectations dictated by our past experiences. Recapping the man in Kathmandu. Then Lynn and the main character do a recapping of the man in Kathmandu, how his presence affected things. This was in like the first or second chapter. He changed the mood of everyone when he sat down. He brought a new mood into the pool area before he even said a word. His energy was already set to enter the energy fields of others and give them a positive boost. Think about how that felt. Everyone in the area seemed to go from a state of irritation and discomfort to a state of mind that was more open and conversant. His energy opened you up to explore something new instead of being stuck in dread or despair or whatever else you were facing. It could have also gone the other way if the man hadn't been strong enough in his energy as he walked into the pool area. He might have even been overwhelmed by the low energy state of the rest of you and been brought down to your level. But this guy had mastered the art of presence and charisma and energy sending. Why the interaction with the Hollander failed. The Hollander brought the main character into the fear state. He was terrified and his fear affected you. You let the mood prevail. The energy fields of all of us mix together out there and the strongest ones prevail. That's the unconscious dynamic that characterizes the human world. The state of our energy, our prevailing expectations, no matter what they are, go out and influence everyone else's mood and attitude. The level of awareness between humans and all the expectations that go with it are contagious. This also explains the great mysteries of crowd behavior, why decent people influenced by a few who are in great fear or anger can get caught up in lynchings, riots, or other despicable deeds. It also explains why hypnosis works and why movies and television have such a great influence on the weak-minded. The prayer field of each person on earth intermingles with all the others, creating all the norms and group affiliations and national mindsets and ethnic hostilities that we see out there. When we are relating to people and we find that we are taking on their mood, being overcome with their expectations, we have to go back and fill up again and overflow very cautiously until the mood elevates. Culture is contagious. Travel to a foreign land and see how the people not only think differently, but feel differently as a matter of mood and outlook. All right, so now I'm going to read page 104 because it demonstrates how to use the extensions through story. "That's the young Hollander," Yin said, running to the jeep. I grabbed the camp stove and threw it into the back and hopped into the vehicle as Yin was turning around. "We'll be fortunate to catch him at that speed," Yin commented as we gave chase. We drove over a small hill and down into a narrow valley, finally catching a glimpse of the vehicle cruising down the road several hundred yards ahead of us. "We have to reach out to him with our prayer energy," Yin said. I took a deep breath, visualizing my energy outflowing up the road and into the Land Cruiser and having an effect on the young man. I imaged him slowing down and stopping. As I sent the image, the vehicle actually sped up, pulling away from us. I was confused. "What are you doing?" Yin yelled, looking over at me. "I'm using my field to make him stop." "Don't use your energy that way," Yin said quickly. "It has the opposite effect." I looked at him blankly. "What do you do," Yin asked, "when someone tries to manipulate you into doing something?" "I resist it," I said. "That's right," Yin went on. "At the unconscious level, the Hollander can feel you trying to tell him what to do. He feels manipulated, and that gives him the sense that whoever is behind him is up to no good, which produces more fear and adds to his determination to flee. All we can do is visualize our energy reaching out and increasing his level of vibration overall. This allows him to more fully overcome the fear and get in touch with his higher self intuitions, which hopefully will lead him to be less afraid of us, to maybe risk a conversation. That's all we can do with our prayer energy. To do anything else is to presume that we know his best life course, but only he knows that. Perhaps it will be that his higher intuition, once we send him enough energy, is to dump us and get out of the country. We have to be open to that. And that we can do is help him make the decision from the highest possible energy. He rounded a curve in the road and the blue Land Cruiser was nowhere to be seen. Yin slowed down. To our right was a smaller road that seemed to stand out in appearance. "That way," I said, pointing. 100 yards ahead, at the bottom of a small hill, was a wide but shallow tributary. In the middle was the Dutchman's vehicle, racing its engine, spinning its wheels and spattering mud, but going nowhere. It was stuck. The young man glanced back at us and opened the door, preparing to run. But when he recognized me, he shut the engine off and got out in the knee-deep water. As we pulled our Jeep alongside, Yin looked at me closely, and I could tell from his expression that he was reminding me to use my energy, and I nodded to him. "We can help you," I said to the young man. He eyed us suspiciously for a moment, but gradually warmed as Yin and I got out and pushed the fender of the Land Cruiser as he gunned the engine. Its wheels spun for a moment, spewing mud against my pants legs, then it leaped out of the hole and crossed to the other side of the river. We followed in our Jeep. The young man looked at us for a moment as though deciding whether to drive away, but got cut out and walked back toward us. As he approached, we introduced ourselves. He told us his name was Jacob. As we spoke, I began to look for the wisest expression I could find on his face. So now we go to the bottom of page 106. I continue to visualize my energy going into him and to focus on his face, looking for an expression of calmness and wisdom in his features, especially in his eyes. Finally, he began to look at me. "Why do you want to find this man?" he asked. "We believe that he needs our help. He is the man who asked me to come to Tibet." And they're talking about Will. Now we're skipping to page 108. "Do you think you understand the third extension now?" he asked. "Think about all that it entails." I looked at him for a moment, pondering his question. The key to this extension, it seemed, was the idea that our fields can boost others, lifting people into a higher awareness where they can tap into their own guiding intuitions. What expanded this idea for me, beyond anything I had heard in Peru, was the concept that our prayer field flows out in front of us and that we could set it to uplift everyone around us, even though we aren't talking to them directly or even seeing their faces. We can do this by visualizing fully that it is happening, by expecting it. Of course, one has to be totally non-controlling with this energy. Otherwise, it backfires, as I had seen when I tried to make Jacob stop his vehicle. I mentioned all this to Yin. What you are understanding is the contagious aspect of the human mind, Yin explained. In a sense, we all share minds. Certainly, we have control over ourselves and can pull back, cut ourselves off, think independently. But as I said earlier, the prevailing human worldview is always a giant field of belief and expectation. The key to human progress is to have enough people who can beam a higher expectation of love into this human field, This effort allows us to build an ever higher level of energy and to inspire each other toward our greatest potential. Yin seemed to relax for a moment and smiled over at me. The culture of Shambhala, he said, is built around setting such a field. I couldn't help smiling back. This journey was beginning to make sense in a way I couldn't yet articulate. All right, now we're skipping to the bottom of page 112. Listen to me closely, he said. You must understand exactly where you are. You have learned the first of 3 extensions. You have been able to consistently raise your energy and create a strong field, but like me, you still fall into fear and anger. There are some other things I can tell you about anchoring your outflow of energy. What do you mean by anchor? I asked. You must stabilize your flow of energy better, so that it is coming out of you into the world strongly no matter what your situation is. When you do this, all 3 of the extensions that you have learned become a constant mindset and a way of life. Is this the 4th extension? I asked. It is the beginning of the 4th. What I'm about to tell you is the last information we have about the extensions. The rest of the 4th extension is known clearly only to those in Shambhala. Ideally, the extensions should work together like this. Your prayer energy should come from your divine connection within and flow out in front of you, bringing forth the expected synchronicity and uplifting everyone it touches into his or her higher self. In this way, it maximizes the mysterious evolution of our lives and the awareness of and completion of our individual missions on this planet. Unfortunately, we hit bumps in the road, challenges that bring on a state of fear, which, as we have discussed, brings on doubt and thus collapses our fields. Worse, this fear can bring on negative images, bad expectations, which can help create what we fear in our lives. What you must learn now is a way of anchoring your higher energy so that you stay in the positive flow more often. The problem with fear, Yin went on, is that it can be very subtle and sneak up on us quickly. You see, a fear image is always about some outcome we don't want. We fear failing, embarrassing ourselves or our families, losing our freedom or someone we loved, or our own lives. The difficult part is that when we begin to feel such fear, it often turns into anger, and we use this anger to marshal our forces and fight back against whoever we feel is the threat. Whether we are feeling fear or anger, we have to realize that these emotions come from one source, those aspects of our lives we want to hold on to. The legends say that since fear and anger come from being concerned that we are going to lose something, the way to avoid these emotions is to be detached from all outcomes. We were well north of town now, and the snow was falling even heavier. Yin was straining to see the road and glanced only briefly at me as he talked. Take our case, for instance, he said. We are looking for Will in the gateway to Shambhala. The legends would say that at the same time we set our fields to expect just the right intuitions and events to guide us, we should detach totally from any particular outcome. This is what I was getting at when I cautioned you about being too attached to whether Jacob stopped or not. The importance of detachment is the great message of the Buddha and the gift to humanity provided by all the Eastern religions. I was familiar with the concept, but at the moment I was having trouble seeing its value. Yin, I protested. How can we detach completely? This idea often sounds like an ivory tower theory to me. It may be a matter of life and death that we help Will. How can we not care about that? Yin pulled the Jeep off the road and stopped. Visibility was now near zero. I didn't say not to care, he continued. I said not to be attached to any particular outcome. What we get in life is always slightly different from what we want anyway. To be detached is to realize that there is always a higher purpose that can be found in any event, in any outcome. We can always find a silver lining, a positive meaning that we can build on. I nodded. This was a concept I knew from Peru. I understand, I said, the value of looking at things that way generally, but doesn't such an outlook have its limits? What if we are about to be killed or tortured? It's hard to be detached about that or to see a silver lining. Yin stared at me hard. But what if being tortured is the result of us not being detached enough during the events leading up to such a critical situation? Our legends say that when we learn detachment, our energy can remain high enough to avoid all these extremely negative occurrences. If we could stay strong, always expecting the positive, whether the outcome was exactly what we thought or not, then miracles begin to happen. I couldn't believe this. Are you saying that everything bad that happens to us occurs because we missed some synchronistic opportunity to avoid it? He looked at me with a smile. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. But that's awful. Doesn't that assign blame, say, to someone who has a terminal disease, thinking that it's his own fault he's sick because he missed the opportunity to find healing? No, there is no blame. We all do the best we can. But what I have told you is the truth we must accept if we are to reach the highest levels of prayer energy. We must keep our fields as strong as possible, and to do this, we must always believe with a powerful faith that we will be saved from such problems. At times we will miss something, he continued. Human knowledge is incomplete, and we may die or be tortured because of a lack of information. But the truth is this: if we had all of the knowledge that humans will eventually have, we would always be guided out of a perilous situation. We reach our greatest power when we assume this is the case already. This is the way we can stay detached and flexible and build a powerful field of expectation. It was all beginning to make sense. Yin was telling me we had to assume that the synchronistic process would always take us out of harm's way, that we would know ahead of time which moves to make, because that ability is our destiny. If we believe that, sooner or later, it will become a reality for all humans. All the great mystics, Yin went on, say that operating from total faith is important. The Apostle John in your Western Bible describes the result of this kind of faith. They put him in a vat of boiling oil, and he was unharmed. Others were placed with hungry lions, and they remained safe. Are these merely myths? But how high does our faith have to be to achieve this level of invulnerability? I asked. We have to reach a level approaching those in Shambhala, Yin replied. Don't you see how it all fits together? If our ongoing prayer expectation is strong enough, we both expect synchronicity and send energy to others so that they can also expect synchronicity. The level of energy keeps going up, and in the meantime, there is always the Dakini. He looked away quickly, apparently horrified that he had mentioned these beings again. What about the Dakini? I asked. He was silent. Yin, I pressed. You have to tell me what you mean. How do the Dakini fit into all this? Finally, he took a breath and said, I'm telling you only what I myself understand. The legends say the Dakini are understood only by those in Shambhala, and that we must be very careful. I can't tell you more. I looked at him angrily. Well, we'll just have to find out later, won't we? When we reach Shambhala. He looked at me with great sadness. I already told you, I have had too much experience with the Chinese military. My hate and anger erode my energy. If at any time I see that I am holding you back, I will have to leave, and you will have to go on alone. I stared at him, not wanting to contemplate that idea. Just remember, he continued, what I said about being detached and trusting that you will always be guided past any danger. He paused a moment as he started the Jeep and drove on through the blowing snow. You can bet, he finally said, that your faith will be tested. And that concludes the Contagion of Awareness. Like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.